Welcome, everybody. Come on in. You have found us. My name is Lauren Bailey. My friends call me LB. I'm the founder of Girls Club and Factor 8, and I'm joined by amazing women today. We're going to talk about why it's so critical right now to focus on development. So in just a second, I'm going to have these amazing ladies introduce themselves. We're going to hear about their stories. These are all women I admire. We're going to look at what's going on in the industry from a couple different perspectives. I think we're going to have a lot of agreement and maybe a little disagreement along the way, but definitely some good conversations. So thank you very much for joining us. If you're watching this on a replay, somebody thought this was critical, and we really agree. Listen up, folks. All right, let's jump in. We're going to talk about why it's so critical right now to talk about development. Who's on the panel? Dun, dun, dun. Erica, I'm coming to you first. Would you please introduce yourself?
I'd love to. My name is Erica Lance. I'm the Chief Human Resource Officer for KnowBe4. We're a cybersecurity company that is training the human firewall, which is really vital in these days. And I'm fortunate enough to run a global HR of over 12 different countries. And super excited that KnowBe4 has been the award winner for 2 years in a row, #1 for one of the best places for women to work from the Girls Club Awards. So I'm super excited about that.
Thank you very much for your helping young women change the face of sales and sales leadership. We love your partnership and your sponsorship, and we're just really proud to be honored with your presence and to help recognize you for what you are doing to make it a great place for women to work in sales. And it's just awesome. So thank you for being here. Your perspective is going to be fantastic. Next up, Rocky Warriors.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rocky Voria. I lead our sales development function at Procore Technologies. We are a software company. We have an all-in-one construction management software. We help companies finish projects safely, on time, within budget. I've been at Procore for about 5 months now. So relatively new to the company. Was previously at IBM, where I led the global digital sales development function, and then was also at Microsoft before that, where I helped them to build a 2,000 inside sales force. So really passionate about building and scaling high-performing sales teams and also building really strong cultures. And I believe in order to do that, you need 2 things. You need diversity, and you also need to prioritize employees' professional development. So really excited to be here today to share my thoughts on these topics and to learn from some of the other panelists.
I'm so happy you joined us. I listened to you. Well, first thing, I think I read some of your comments about this in Forbes and then watched you speak on it years and years ago. And I count myself lucky to call you a text friend now. So thank you for gracing us with your knowledge and your presence. Speaking of grace, Judy, you were the first female badass that I was exposed to when I was coming up in sales. Now, that's not because you're old, it's because you were so successful so quickly. We won't talk about the big birthday that you have tomorrow and how everybody should message you and send you birthday love and wishes. Go ahead and introduce yourself. I'll stop.
Oh my goodness, Lauren. I'm Judy Balcoles. I'm the SVP of sales for the Americas for Pegasystems. I've been here about a year. Prior to that, I spent a number of years at IBM. I had an opportunity to know Rocky from that as well. So glad to see you on the panel. I'm just at a different kind of place in my career. I'm here to try to figure out how I give back at Pega to help them grow, how I give back to the next generation of leaders, how we have the right mentorship programs for females and D&I within our firm. So I'm really excited to be here, share my thoughts, and hear from these great colleagues of mine on this panel.
I love it. Thank you for that. What she's not saying is, folks, she's got nothing left to prove. She's done it. And we're just really grateful that you spend your time with us in Girls Club and helping talk to these. We're in our 4th generation now of Girls Club, and we're excited to have you back to speak to everybody and be the role model that you are. Speaking of Girls Club, Generation 3's winner of the Above and Beyond Award, Lori Dunn.
That's me. Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm Gen 3 protege and soon to be Gen 4 mentor. Very excited. So if you're here looking and you're thinking Girls Club, just do it. talk to me after, just do it. I am fresh out of my first head of sales role at a climate tech startup, a small 7-person startup, and looking for the next. So on this panel, you're going to hear me talk a little bit more about the job seeking side and from the smaller startup side, where there aren't as many resources there. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Really good segue into our agenda. We're going to talk about why professional development is so critical to talk about now. And then we're going to dive into the employer point of view. What can I do and why? And the employee point of view, right? How can I find it? How can I get it? And we'll take your questions at the end. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. Number one question I'm going to throw out to the panel. Why? Rocky, I'm going to you first. Why is this a big deal right now? Why should everybody share what they're learning here?
Well, I think before, training and development opportunities were viewed as more of a nice to have, not a need to have, whereas now it's without a doubt a need to have, especially for the millennial and Gen Z populations, including myself. I fall into the millennial category myself. It's important to me. It's something that I asked Procore when I was interviewing a few months ago. So why would it be surprising that people who want to work for me or in my organization are asking the same question too? So there's a lot of studies out there that show this. I think many of us are familiar with the Deloitte Millennial Study, which comes out every single year. And if you look at the results from the past several years, one of the top things that consistently shows up is that people really care about professional development. So if you're a company that's offering this, my advice for you is to get noisy about it. Make sure that it's known. Make sure you're proactively talking about it in your interview process, listing information about this on your website, on your career site, all of that. And if you're a company that might not be doing this already, you got to build a strategy around this fast. And I think today we'll talk a little bit about what some of those examples are. I think there's a number of paid options, whether it's a mix of offering formal courses or executive coaching or LinkedIn learning, or there's even some non-paid options that I've found a lot of success in, like creating a mentor ring or things like that. So we'll talk a little bit more during today's webinar about what companies can do, but it's definitely top of mind for everyone and something we all need to be thinking about.
We're in a war for talent. I don't think you can call it anything else. It is a war. And this is what the talent's asking for. Erica, I want to go to you next as our expert, right? You've been awarded the #1 place where women want to work, and that is millennial and Gen Z women. It's all women. Why do you think it's hot right now? What have you noticed?
Well, I think for us, professional development is huge. People want to know they can move up within the company. I think it's very different. I often say this, that gone are the days of waiting for the gold watch to be delivered to you upon retirement. Some people on this may not even know what I'm talking about. If you watch the movie Speed, it explains it greatly. But people aren't waiting anymore. They want to continually grow. They want to continually move up within a company, and you have to have ways for them to do that. And that's not always a promotion. A lot of times it's upgrading their skill set or, sort of leveling up what they're able to do and what they're accomplishing. So they feel like that they're moving up within their career path. And I think that's something that KnowBe4 does really, really well for not only the women, which is very important. We're almost a 50% woman company, which is exciting, but also for everyone. And you have to have that path, and it shouldn't be something that's like super secret and hidden and you don't know how to find it. And I think a lot of companies have not realized that that's what's needed out there, have not come up to where it should be done. So
yes,
that is my take on this.
Thank you. If you get it on the website, right? If you've got formalized career paths, bring it to the interview. Let's quit hiding it, but get that badge out there. I think that's critical. Judy, I want to talk to you about it. You said that when we were practicing for this, you're like, I literally just did a leadership summit about developing the next generation. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, so when you think about development, I think to your point, Erica, people a lot of times leave places because they don't see a path forward for themselves, and a path forward isn't always a promotion. It could be a lateral, it could be just an enriching experience for them to help them grow. But I think about development in 3 prongs, especially for leaders, people who are managers or people who are seeking to be executives. I looked at it from 3 lens. How do you enrich yourself as a person, as a leader? How do you bring the best of you to work every day, right? Because if you're not doing that, right, it's very difficult, right, for your peers, your colleagues, and the rest to do the same. The next lens is, how are you the best coach for your teams, right? What are the right coaching skills and capabilities do you need? How do you enrich someone to be a better coach? Those coaching skills permeate over to your life, right? Those are life skills to have in situations. And then the third lens is, how do you relate to your clients, be it a big C or little c, internal or external, right? How do you have the right skills and capabilities to really bring the best to your constituents, whoever you're working with, selling to? So I think of leadership development in those three buckets, because it's more than one thing. And it's beyond knowing your tools, technology, or suite of what you're selling. That's a different type of development. I'm talking about a development of a person.
Gosh,
So
yeah.
I just did that recently, 200 leaders in Orlando. We spent 3 days, and it was on those three lenses, because we don't take the time to do that for our people typically.
I literally just watched a YouTube video last week with Brene Brown and Oprah Winfrey. So, you know, some light hitters there. And Brene was saying to Oprah, what I admire about you, maybe more than anything else, is that you're an amazing teacher, right? But you're an amazing teacher because you're an amazing student.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we do that very well all the time, right? I may throw some budget at some training for my people, but am I role modeling it?
Mm-hmm.
And am I a learner? Am I developing and enriching myself, right? Not just for the skills, but and not just for the culture, but for the pure joy of, I need to learn and grow also. So thank you for bringing that lens in. That's fantastic. All right, one more lens. I think it's really important. Lori, you were just telling us before we went live about your question list, right? When you're interviewing employers, and be clear, folks, it is a buyer's market. All right. The Loris of the world are in charge, and they're interviewing us. Talk to us about what you're thinking here around development and why it's important.
Development's a huge one. I can tap in on what each of these ladies have said of, yes, that is important. Yes, that is valuable. I want to know, if you don't have someone who can act as a mentor for me on your team, and right now I'm talking head of sales, so many times there aren't, do you have budget for me to hire a mentor for outside coaching that in? I need to know that. If we want to take that back for anyone here who's looking for SDRs and the like, they want to know all the different career pathing that we have, right? We're in the business of people. So when you have this skill set, you can go into ops, you can go marketing, you can go anywhere with this. They want to know what that looks like. And I want to see that. I want to know that I'm not just learning the skills of how to dial, how to close. For me now, pipeline generation and talking with investors and the like. But I want to know one step further from that. How am I developing myself as a human and making sure I'm hitting those goals? Because my goal, I talk about it a lot, I'm really big into climate tech. I want to know that I have access to sales development opportunities and this clean tech energy climate work that I like. And usually these companies can have both, but I need to know whether it's, are we getting access to a community, or do we have the funding and the people? Maybe you have investors that can act as a mentor free of charge. Or maybe you now have realized, okay, to get this head of sales, I also need to have extra funding because they're going to need X amount of money each month to access the mentorship that we just don't have on staff.
Good. I like how you talked about finding new ways to find those mentors. I also learned this in the last few years with Girls Club. Folks, this generation of job seekers, they check. Right? I can't tell you how many stories I've heard. The women in Girls Club not taking jobs because they went and looked you up and you didn't have any women. You didn't have any diversity, right? And they don't want to be part of that. They want the opportunity to be mentored, and they want the opportunity to see people that look like them and not a token them. And it's not just amazing women like Lori, who this is important to. I'm going to throw a stat in here. A study recently by Better Buys had studied 2,000 professionals, men and women, and 92% said that access to professional development was important or very important. So it's a big damn deal right now. So let's talk about, are most companies getting it, right? I think it was you, Rocky, at the beginning said, you know, it used to be a nice to have, and now it's a have to have. do people get, Eric, I want to come to you first, right? You've been the winner here. And by the way, a clear winner for 2 years in a row. But you've got a global view of lots of different companies. Are most companies getting it?
I don't think so, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but I don't think they are getting it. I think that, the last 2 years has proven one thing, is that employees or job seekers know what they want and what they want out of their work-life balance and what they're expecting. And it's no longer, please, can I have this job? It's more like, I don't know if I want to work for you. And that's very different. I mean, it's very different. I've been doing human resources for a very long time, and I'm not
I love it. For a year or two. Just
yeah. But it's a completely different mindset. So I think the other thing that's interesting is, obviously companies are competing for talent. So they like to keep some of the stuff that they're doing secret until you're in a job interview process. They don't advertise it very much.
Okay.
The problem with that is that we can't help each other get better. We can't help each other grow if you don't share successful actions and what you're doing and how that's impacting things and how to make a difference. I'm a huge proponent of, we'll put it on the website, where, we're continually growing our careers page to have more deep dives into diversity and inclusion and our sustainability, and how do people move up within the organization? What is our promotional rate? All of that. I talk about it all the time, because most companies, people don't know how, and especially as companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they become this gigantic sort of entity. I want to say monster, but that's not accurate, but an entity that it's very hard to change at that point in time. But I can tell you from friends that work at huge companies with tens of thousands of employees, they don't know how to move up. But I've seen so many people that will leave a job at level A, they'll leave, and a year later, you're paying them 3 times as much or something to come into level C. And you could have grown that talent and not had that institutional knowledge walk out the door. But instead, you're waiting for them to depart and then come back. And it's sort of like this leapfrog game.
And they have to. Like, that was normal. As I became an executive in corporate America, it was like, no. If we promote so-and-so, we can get away with just a 5% raise. Like, it's the wrong mindset, right? Instead of helping people earn what they can and get what they deserve, they have to leave and come back to get treated as they should, right? We're treating the outsiders better than the insiders. Lori, I want that outsider perspective. You are interviewing lots of companies right now. How many are getting it? Like, is it as bad as Eric and I suspect it is?
Yeah, it sure is.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of, we talked about they need to, they should do. There's a lot of people that know they should, and they say, I really want to do that, but I don't know how that looks.
Okay.
I don't know what the money looks like. I don't know what the intros look like. And instead of maybe showing up to this webinar or asking their advisors for advice and help of other ways to do it, it's a big like, we really want to.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. I'm hearing a lot of that. And I am at smaller companies where you're having a lot of first-time founders, maybe second time, but things are a little smaller and kind of nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
So I get it. And I do kindly walk away.
And I don't know if it's easier or at a smaller company or a bigger company to help make some of these changes, but I can tell you that when you look at budgets and you've got a line item for recruiting and you got a line item for tools, where's your line item for development? And the last time I did surveys on that, it was less than 50% of companies that have that. And we're missing that. So let's change the conversation into what good looks like. Okay. I'm an employer. I'm watching. Someone has sent this to me because I need help. Rocky, I'm going to come to you first. What are the great companies doing?
Well, I've been fortunate to work at 3 different companies that actually have invested quite a bit in professional development. I'd say there's a few things that come to mind as I reflect on what they were doing well. The first one is, I think great companies are the ones who not only have a program, but are the ones who are talking about it, as I mentioned. Obviously, during the recruiting process, for sure, making sure that you're making it a point to demonstrate to the people like Lori what you have to offer. But then also importantly, making sure that your existing employees know about it. I'll tell you, in every single experience that I've had at all 3 companies I've worked at, there have been a number of employees who just had no idea what types of things were offered because it's just not front and center. They didn't know they had access to coaching or whatever it might be. And so it's really important to make sure that you're talking about it in all hands or in your newsletters or whatever it might be. I think the second is companies that have a budget, an actual dedicated budget. So if you don't have one, you need to carve out money for that at the beginning of the year, do it by person and make sure that you're really being thoughtful about how much money you're putting into the system.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think it's just actual documented programs. So it can be a mix of things. I mean, some companies could offer a tuition reimbursement program or a conference budget to attend industry events or maybe executive coaching, as I had mentioned. And I think the companies that do it really well are the ones who make sure that it's not too generic. So offering professional development by role, by gender. I mean, you know, a coaching program for women, not just for everyone, or for your women in sales or whatever it might be. Those are the ones I think that really get it because you have kind of tailor-made paths by career, by role to really help people to achieve what it is that they want to do with the career.
I love it. I'm going to put you on the spot and anybody can come in and help rescue. You're talking about you've got to carve out money to do this, right? Does anybody have a range of what they suggest? Like what should the employee per head count per employee annual budget be for development?
It's tough because yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that can be difficult because it depends partially on the industry, what the training metrics are that are available, how much internal training do you have available to the employees, how much career development do you have? It's a balance. I don't think you can just sort of slap a number on it, for lack of a better way of saying it. But if there are certifications and there are things like that, look into what are the appropriate certifications for the different positions you have within your company. How much does that cost? There's only a percentage of people that will take advantage of that, but have it available and have it available in each of the various areas within the company. But also allow your employees to take time to go do professional development.
Yeah.
Some of these courses, webinars and stuff are not like, okay, they can do it in the evenings and on the weekends and stuff like that. You have to afford them the time or even bring in people to discuss things. That's another way of doing it, meaning like, especially for sales, which is huge, right? Is there are so many leaders in the industry that are great. Put the money in the budget to bring those leaders in to do a live session with your sales folks. Sorry for jumping over you, Rocky. That was just my 2 cents.
Appreciate it.
Oh, that's a great point. I agree. I mean, it depends if you have enough internally, you might not need as much of an external budget. So it really kind of depends on what the mix of your programs look like and what you have to offer.
Yeah. There's a couple things I want to, Erica, you kind of made me think about a few things. So we have something called dig days once a quarter. It's a day that you take to enrich yourself. It could be externally, internally. It could be that you go volunteer that day, something that you're passionate about and you do, right? And that doesn't cost anything because honestly, it makes people more productive, right? When they know they have the time to enrich themselves in whatever form they want. It could be just a day you spend, on mindfulness. So that's one thing. The other thing, when you said how much budget, I think companies who really take a look at their P&L and they say, what are the causes and effects, right? When I make this investment, what is the outcome I'm going to get from it? Is it better retention? So what does the turnover cost me? Is it better leadership? Is it what are those things that could be the outcomes? So the dollars are associated to an outcome. And when you start thinking of it that way, you just build it into your metrics, into your system, right? It just becomes part of the fabric because you're expecting these outcomes and these investments should help enable and drive them.
Yes.
So I think companies who think that way would realize that the investment is worth it.
Yes. Woo-hoo. Thank you for that. I've done research into this, and I'll make sure that when we send the replay out and follow up with this, that I'll give you a link to that blog. Because there's a couple different ways that companies break down the number, and whether that number is your internal people or your external people. And like you said, you don't even have to spend it all. I'll tell you, I've been on a soapbox for a lot of years about it's time to develop people, right? That's the business I chose to start. And as a small company of under 20 people, it wasn't until this year I finally got a line item into the budget for every single person. So it's easy to miss it and to not think about it and to skip it. And it was really tempting then when we were way over budget to be like, oh, well, we haven't had that in the past and we're good and we do it internally. I'm like, no, damn it. I can't keep talking about it and not have it. The line item stays and I will cut something else. So we get it. It's not always easy, but it is critical right now. All right. So we talked about what good looks like, right? And what great companies are doing. Lori, what does it look like when they're just phoning it in? Like, what's the bare minimum that we're seeing out there? And employers, this question is for you, so you can see where you're at.
Bare minimum is you have your standard one-on-one with your sales leader, and they say, what, we already talked about your professional development. That's not the time. That's not your one-on-one. That is not the time for that. That's the bare minimum. Saying just the talk track of, yeah, we'll get to that in the next quarter. And then you ask the next quarter and it doesn't come. That's the absolute bare minimum. And you maybe have good intentions, but your one manager already doing their one-on-one is not it. And the continued promise is not it.
I love that. There's a study recently that I will murder right now. Exec Vision and Bridge Group put it out, and it asked, how much coaching are you doing and how much coaching are your employees getting? And they asked the employers, or the coaches, if you will, and the employees. And the coaches said, I'm spending 2 to 3 hours a week on coaching, right? That's what the manager said. 76% of the employees disagreed with that number. So a one-on-one or a look at the metrics, that's not coaching, right? Talking about your performance, that's not development. It needs to be dedicated time on that. That's a really good one. Thank you for that. Good. I see that there's a question already up. We're going to get to that sucker at the end because I want to switch it around for a second, right? What is it that employees get the most excited about? So leaders, look at the companies you've been in, what you've offered. Judy, I already love Dig Days as a really great example, and that's already been chatted about as well. What else do people get excited about? Ideas people can steal. Anybody can jump in first on this one.
I would say the employees can get very excited about certifications. Like they really can, because a lot of employees want to do certifications or they think, like they've heard about it. But some of these certifications can be thousands of dollars just even to take the test, right? And then do you reward them when they level themselves up in that expertise? And so we happen to be in cybersecurity. There's a ton of certifications, but I will just talk for my people ops team. Like I have my people ops team come in and they are just blown away that I'm like, okay, so when are you working on your next certification? When are you doing that? But that's part of it. Regardless of what we talk about here, it's whether or not the executive, whatever level you're at, manager all the way up, lead all the way up, goes, hey, what is your next step? What is the next step you want to do? How do we do that next step with you? It's because if you're waiting for them to go, hey, can I level up? Can I do that? A lot of people aren't going to ask if they don't know it's a possibility because they don't want to get shot down. Yeah. They don't want to get told no, or they don't want to be somebody who's doing that. And then I go, oh, well, Lori's asking about doing this stuff. I don't know that she's going to stay around a long time. Like it's sort of a cyclic trap. And
yeah. Well, Erica, what happens if we're investing money into people and they leave?
That's fine. If we're investing money into people and they leave, people are going to leave. It's the percentage of people that leave, and you creating a workplace where they want to stay, that it's fulfilling what they want to have in a workplace. Because, this has been sort of the thing that's talked about for a while. People don't necessarily stay for pay, right? Now, that doesn't mean you can pay them below average or whatever, but that it's usually, what is their day like? We spend 8 hours a day in a workplace. What is that like? Are they having fun? Are they achieving goals? Sometimes it's stressful. It's going to be stressful, but are they overall satisfied with that 8 hours or more potentially that they spent at that? If they are not, because they're not seeing that they're growing, they're not seeing that they're happy, they're not seeing they're mentored well, they're coached, they're assisted in achieving their goals, that's when they start looking. Generally, I only see people looking at pay when there's such a wide disparity that any of us on this call would go, yeah, no, I'm going to go over there. Like if it's so huge that you go, oh, okay, it's $30,000. Yeah, I'm going to leave. That's right on over, because that's a big difference. But generally you talk even like $5,000-$10,000, that won't push somebody over the edge if they truly love what they're doing and truly feel like they're growing. And it's also, the fact is that it used to be you looked at a resume and went, that person was only there for 2 years. Wow, that's terrible. No, you look at a resume and go, oh, look at their job title. So they jumped so that they could be this bigger thing. And maybe they even had 1 year and they jumped for the bigger thing. It's because they're leveling themselves up to be more valuable for a company.
Oh, I love that. Okay, Rocky, I'm going to put you on the spot again. I've heard you talk about the fact that career growth isn't a ladder, it's a jungle gym. And that's just what Erica was talking about. And I think you can also probably shed some light on the statistics of how important is pay.
Yeah, I mean, I think pay is obviously important for sure. In the past, I think it was a lot more important than it is now because people categorize things in different ways. So, for example, you might have a lower base pay somewhere, but if it's a company that offers executive coaching, sometimes having an executive coach for a year can cost $20,000. So if you add all of those things up, it might actually be more advantageous to a person to take the job with a little bit less pay if they feel like they're getting all of these other development opportunities with that. So people are really starting to think about what's the total package, and that includes professional development in a way that it hasn't in years past. I also just wanted to mention Erica's comment. I have a really similar philosophy on people leaving. I think companies have got to get away from being afraid of training people who are going to leave. As a leader myself, nothing gives me greater satisfaction than when I get a call from someone who said they recruited somebody from my team who was awesome. Because at the end of the day, regardless of where an employee goes, they're an ambassador of you, of your brand, of your company's brand. And the more that you're doing to invest in creating incredible future talent for other places, that's actually a good thing for you. People are going to know, okay, Procore is doing something right, and I want to be part of that.
I love that. It's a really good point of view. Has anybody seen that quote where it says, what happens if I train them and they leave? And then the other guy says, but what if you don't and they stay? Right? And that always hits home for me. Judy, what else do people love? I mean, give us some great ideas about what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, people just want to feel connected. They want to feel like their values are similar. I mean, we doing a lot with ERGs, right? So we have all these different resource groups that people have an affinity to. So whatever they may be, I'm the champion for people with disabilities resource group, but we have like 8 or 9 different resource groups at our company. And it just gives you a different dimension to what you bring and what others are bringing. And I think to some of the other comments, people, you need to be passionate about what you do or who you're working for or the company. If you lose that passion and it's time for you to move on, I totally agree with you, Erica. You allow the person to move on, because I don't want people who don't want to be here, right? They're not going to give you 1,000%. They're going to give you the minimal amount just to get by each day to collect that paycheck. And I rather have them go somewhere else. So I think, are there passionate things that people are interested in that you can give them opportunities to explore? Can you give them opportunities to be part of job fairs or career fairs so they can learn about what are the other things I'd like to do with my career? What's the next step for me? The next step may not be to stay in sales. Maybe I'm interested in marketing or the business partner side. So how do I allow those folks to explore and learn, right? To figure out what they can do, and then let them move, because to Rocky's point, internal or external movement is great, because then they're bringing with them what they've learned and the brand that they have, and hopefully it'll be a positive brand for you. Too many companies, when people leave, make it a very negative experience for the person.
Yeah.
Guilt, they try to sue you, non-compete, all those things happen. And guess what? That's not good for you, because that is the brand and the image that person takes with them. So guess what? what they're talking about when they're out in the market, when they're talking to colleagues, right? They're talking about that negative brand. So I really agree with you, Erica and Rocky, on that point. You want your brand image to be positive when a person walks out the door.
You got to clap them out the door,
Yeah.
right? You got to send flowers. You got to help them get the job. You got to announce it with pride on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Lori, your perspective on this. What do you get excited about when you're asking your questions about development and what's out there? What lights you up?
It starts before I even have the conversation. So it starts if they have it on the website, it's already been said, like, tell me what you're doing. And then I'm going to check that. I'm going to check your people on LinkedIn. Judy just mentioned a lot of branding stuff. If your people are out there talking about it, how great you are, how wonderful you're doing, that's usually really hard to fake, because when I talk, everything that I post is from me. So if I'm really happy where I am, you're hearing it. I'm not going to be talking about how wonderfully they're respecting diversity in the employer, or how much they're helping me get better if they're not.
Yeah.
So I'm checking to see what each person's doing, also to see if there's a gag order in the company that I can't keep building my personal brand. If they have that fear of like, what if she leaves? Like, I might, I don't know. We don't know.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So I want to know that your people are okay to be out there talking. And that gets me pretty excited. Then when I come in the interview and I get real direct really fast. What's your take on professional development? Let's talk budget. Let's talk this. And then what's important that I feel a lot of people miss out on is say, what's the last thing you have done for your professional development? I ask every leader, do you have a coach? Oh, where do you go for advice? This is your first time. Who do you go to when you don't understand what you're talking about in this segment, when you're talking about hiring new people? And I make sure I know what they're doing. I do it the same of like unlimited PTO, like, cool. When's the last time you actually took vacation?
Yeah, you got to follow that up, right?
Same thing. I do that with professional development. I want to know what you do. Okay, how about the team?
Okay.
How about, the marketing associate? What do they get? How about your software engineer? Where do they go? Because if you're just putting on a show because we're in sales and we're playing this game, like, I'm not here for that game.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me stay with you for a second, because I want to know where leaders on this call can go to get their development, because it gets lonelier the higher you go.
It does. It gets really lonely. I reach out to a lot of people. Like, if I was anybody on this call right now, I would be reaching out to all 4 and 5 LB as well and saying, hey, let's chat. A lot of leaders, because it's lonelier at the top, we're very eager to talk to other people. They're on their way up as a mentor-mentee relationship or just as friends, to say, hey, what can I get help here? What resources do you have? And because we're all very busy, we're really good at getting really directive, like, do you have this resource for capacity planning?
Yeah.
And it's one line, we're like, hold please. And I go and find it and I share it. Like, we get really good at that, on top of when you find a mentor. What I love to do is continue that relationship on and after the end of whatever program, whatever you're in. And then it's almost like you gamify it and you try to meet at that level. Like, let's get to the place, because anyone who's mentoring me really wants me to succeed, which means they're waiting for me to become their counterpart. And I continue that on. Christmas cards, tagging them in posts, things like that, things that continue to add value. And
I
we
love
all
my Lori Christmas card this year. That was so good.
It's so fun. It's just me and my dog having fun.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Cool outfits too. Who else? Who's got an idea about leadership development?
Well, I will say this: knowledge is power. There are so many amazing books. There are so many amazing podcasts. There are so many amazing TED Talks. I totally agree with finding people to talk to, because everybody has a skill set that they are fantastic at, and none of us are fantastic at all of them. So finding people, regardless of where they are on their journey, that can add value and teach you something you didn't know. But there are a lot of resources out there that I don't think people always take full advantage of, because you don't have to watch a TED Talk, for instance, and think every single thing this person said was exactly accurate. I think a lot of us find little golden nuggets. And I find that even in listening to conversations with on topics of diversity and stuff like that. And guess what? We can get certifications. I think there's a point in time some executives think, okay, I've achieved I've achieved being a chief. I therefore do not need any further education. I just need my crown and cape and people to throw rose petals at me.
Would you
know,
do that
which-
accent for the rest of the webinar?
I
That'd be great.
can, I
Yeah.
really can. But as much as I think that would be cool, I find that I purposely search out books, and especially new books that come out, because there's always a voice, and I may agree with one small part of it, but I always learn something and can take that away and go, okay, I can utilize this. I can do something different with this piece of knowledge, because we're always going to have to grow, and everything changes all the time. The one constant in our existence is change.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? And vice versa, be a mentor for anybody who asks questions. I say this all the time. Anybody who reaches out to me, LinkedIn, whatever, be a mentor for them. And I also firmly believe that we can decide what we want to be when we grow up many times in our lifetime.
Yes.
We can change, and be willing to do that, and be willing to let people do that.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, Lauren, one other thing I would say as a leader, how do I grow? And Erica, those are some really good advice there, because you do get nuggets from different sources. I learn from my team and my colleagues. And I find that when I have a group of people working for me or I'm working with that come from different backgrounds and experiences than me, I learn from them, because they're going to bring a different point of view. They're going to bring a different angle. They're going to think about things differently than I do. And I learn, I'm an experiential learner. I learn best by experiencing and being immersed. And what better way than to have people that you work with that are different, right? Because all of a sudden I walk away from a situation and someone handles it a very different way than I would. I was like, wow, I just learned a great lesson here, right? So I think that's daily learning by who you work with and who you choose to be on your team, right? And I find I'm the best leader when I have complementary skills with me versus the same skills as me. So just one other thought, at least from a leader and growing.
No, I love that. I want to go back to that word choice, because I think that leadership is a meeting by meeting choice. It's not an accomplishment. You don't get there with your crown and your accent, right? Erica, like you choose. What we're all talking about here is the growth mindset. We're all talking about choosing to focus on the improvement and the learning, not the end state, not the finish line, if you will, and enjoying that ride. And the reason I bring up it's a meeting by meeting choice is because, Judy, we can't learn from the people on our team, whether they work for us or they're our colleagues, or we're mentoring them, because we do learn by teaching as you become a leader. We can't do it unless we take the time to do it. And that's the one I have to tell you I work on personally the most. Most of us who grew up in sales are in a big damn hurry, right? Because the month resets every single month. And so we don't take the time for the conversation and for watching other people and for listening to see how somebody else might solve it. So that's my advice to add for the 2 cents. I want to share one more thing. We ask every year in Girls Club what people like the most about the program. And I thought for sure it was going to be number one, the mentoring, right? Because everybody gets a mentor, or the role models, people like Judy and Erica and Draki coming in and having this exposure. And do you know what wins every time? The live sessions, which I think is fascinating. And it doesn't even matter what the subject is. Like in the first 3 out of 5 spots, it's live training sessions. Judy, you started like big nodding on that. Have you found that true in your company too?
And people people get energy from people generally,
Sure.
right? And I think that's just, and especially in the last few years. So when I had that leadership development, half of the value, maybe 70% of the value was these leaders coming together, because they never even, some of them never met each other. They all got hired in the last 2 years. So I think people get a high from being around other people in general. Now I'm generalizing. There's some people who shy away from that. So I think, and that's where you learn. You have those casual conversations. You have those things that you're not going to have in a normal, all day long on the screen, right? Well, these meetings we have over and over and over. You're talking about a topic. You're not really talking to the person. So those live sessions allow you to talk to the person, not the topic.
It's the second time you've talked about connection being really, really important. It's important for development. It's important for retention. I was at the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. I know it's a mouthful, AAISP Senior Executive Retreat in the fall. And we had a huge forum about finding people, right? And very quickly we realized it wasn't about recruiting. It needed to be about retention. And all of these strategies that people were talking about just kind of got batted down one after the other. And at the end of 90 minutes together, the big aha was retention is a one-on-one sport. It's not the program. It's not the budget. It's not the sweeping generalities. And it's a one-on-one connection with the people to keep them there. You guys obviously agree with that as well. That was a breakthrough for me. And in watching the evolution of that idea happen in the room was a neat thing to be a part of. Any other Me Too's on that? I'm going to ask my next question, pausing to see if anybody wants to jump in. All right. I want to go back to now the employee point of view. Lori, I'm coming to you first. How do we find employers who are great at this? 3 tips.
3 tips.
Don't get stuck on the number. I make numbers up. Give me some tips.
Great. You and investors, make them up. Great. You check the website, you check their people, and you ask a lot of questions early and often. Don't sleep on that. I know Rocky said someone asked at the very end about PD. They should have been asking that first one and fact checking along the way. Because what if, I know they would never, Rocky, but what if they said, yeah, of course we do that. And then you join and they didn't actually. You have to be able to fact check it.
Yes, I love that. PD, personal development, I'm assuming, right? So Rocky, when somebody asks you that and says, hey, am I going to have a chance for personal development? How do you answer that?
I give them really tangible examples. I mean, of course, the answer is yes, but then you have to show them what other people have done. So I give some examples of, hey, here's somebody who came into this role 10 months ago and what they were able to achieve. We offered them XYZ and here's where they're at. They were able to move into this role or get this promotion, or this is how a certain development opportunity helped them. So I think just making it really tangible, descriptive, and showing some of those examples of what that looks like is really what resonates with candidates.
Nice job. Storytelling is what I heard you say, right? You want to be ready with a list of what you do, but you also want to arm your frontline folks, whether that's in recruiting and HR or sales management, with some stories about how people are doing. Because let's be honest, folks, this is a sales job. We are selling our companies to these people. I want to talk now to the people who want the development, want to stay at their companies, but need to go ask for the budget, right? I found myself a program, a class, a conference, a certification, and I want the company to spend some money on me. How should they ask for that budget? So this is Rocky. Great. Thank you. I was going to say, I don't even know who to ask first, right? We've got the head of HR. We've got an employee. We've got Rocky. You take it first. And I'm definitely coming to you, Erica and Lori as well.
I think you just got to think of it like any other sales pitch. You start by doing your homework. You need to build your pitch. You need to clearly show the customer, who in this case would be your employer, what the ROI is going to be. So if we break out each of those different pieces on the do your homework side, double check what already exists. I think it's really important to first, make sure you're aware of all of the different offerings. Only then, if there is something that you think is missing or that you need budget for, you need to do a paid option, or you think that'll help, that's when you start to build your pitch. So that's when you're going to start to think about the what, the why, the how, all of that information comes in there. And then write it down, document it, practice it. It's like negotiating anything else. When you're asking for something, it can be hard, it can be scary. So sometimes you might want to role play with somebody and see, if they object to this or they don't really get it, how would I respond to that? So and then on the ROI side, I think you got to obviously clearly demonstrate, here's what I'm going to get out of it. This is what you can expect from me if I'm able to do this. And as part of that, super critical to show And this is what you, as my employer, are going to get out of it. I'm going to be a better employee, a better colleague. I'm going to be more well-versed in this topic or that topic. So yeah, I think just taking sort of that framework, thinking about it like any other sales pitch is a great way to document and kind of go through the motions.
Nice, thank you. Erica, I want to come to you next. If I want to get this development or I want to join this program XYZ, do I go to my manager first? Do I go to HR first? Is there a right or a wrong way or a right path in terms of path and who I ask?
Well, I would start with reading the book, Never Split the Difference. This is on negotiating, so start there. Never Split the Difference, brilliant book. But the other thing I would do is I would ask your manager to see if they know how professional development is handled at the company. How is it handled? And then I would ask, if they don't know the answer, ask the HR consultant, ask the coach. I would just very, I don't want to say innocently, but with like, hey, how is this handled at the company? Oh, I have no idea. Okay, do you know who I should ask? Just keep asking until you go to HR and go, is there a formal policy or procedure on how this is done? Now, and know before, we have a policy and procedures on how you get promoted, how you get certifications, how you do tuition reimbursement. Very easy, plain to read. This is how you do it. Here's a link to the form. This is what happens. If a lot of companies don't necessarily have that, so you may have to ask several people how to do that. And then if you really come to the end and there isn't such a thing, that's when I think going for your proposal, putting it up to your manager and go, hey, can you push this? I'm not sure where this needs to go next. Get their buy-in and have them push it. Now, if you don't get their buy-in or nobody's willing to do anything, that speaks volumes about the company.
That's a really good point. Yes, that's a really good point. But I love the fact that you say, listen, it's just innocent at the beginning. I think sometimes we're afraid to lobby for ourselves and to ask for what we need. And when you're going and you're asking about how professional development works, but also how career pathing works, it's the very same thing about getting ahead, isn't it? Right? You're not saying, I'm all that in a bag of chips, I'm ready to be promoted right now. You're saying, how does it work at the company to get ahead? Erica, what do you want to say about that?
It's true, and I will say this, unfortunately, in general, and I mean this with all the love in the entire world, women tend not to ask for the things that they want or deserve in meetings and in interviews. It is, I can tell you from doing this for, again, a number of years, it's very different sometimes interviewing male candidates versus female candidates. And they go, instead, you know, when somebody asks you, well, how much do you want to make? The response should be, cool. How much are you paying for this position? It's not the other way around. And also don't undervalue yourself when you're doing that. So the same way, anything that you want, you desire, you have to ask for it. If you get told no, then take a step. But if you don't ask and you're hoping that somebody will spot you as a beautiful snowflake out there and go, you know what, you look like you want a certification and I'm bringing it to you. That's not how the world works, unfortunately. So you have to be your largest advocate and make sure you say clearly what you want. This was touched on earlier, but I've, for instance, promoted several people out of my people ops area into other areas of the company because that's where their goals were and that's where their goals align, and did 100% support. But it's because on one-on-ones, I asked them, what do you want to achieve? They told me, and I said, okay, this is what you need to do to achieve that. Let's do that together. But you have to be willing to go, I want to achieve it. And if you're not asked, you go, hey, boss person that's talking to me, just so you know, here are some goals that I have, and I'm wondering how I can work with you to achieve those.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Again and again and again, I hear these stories. Women, we're waiting to be recognized, to get developed, to get promoted, to get seen, and it's got to stop. I'm going to take this moment to let you all know that Know Before is hiring. If you want to work in Erica's organization, now is the time to go and check that website, because they've won 2 years in a row, and that's only because we've been running it for 2 years. Go check it out if this isn't happening. If you want to have more of this happening for you and learn how to have these conversations and be surrounded by this kind of feeling, all the damn time. Come and join us in Girls Club. Our next generation cohort starts on April 1st. Applications are open for only a few more days, and we only have a few seats left, which I'm really excited about. We are Girls Club /Generation 4. If you're looking for places and ways to train people, our other sponsor, Factor 8, really cool president of that company, has rep and manager skill classes out there at very, very low price points. Factor8.com /masterclass for reps and /boot camp for managers. We'll make sure all of those links are in there. I'm going to leave up our Connect with Us slide because we got more people hiring, we got people looking, and then I'm going to go to our questions in our last couple minutes. So pop it in if you haven't already. Thanks for putting your LinkedIn profile in chat. Everybody else feel free as well. One more time, it's NoB4 with the number 4.com /careers. Rocky at Procore, aggressively hiring, I think were the words I heard you use at the beginning. Rocky, it would take a lot to get me to go back into corporate America, but I would work for you. It's the highest compliment I think I can give. So procore.com /jobs. Pegasystems with Judy Buckles.
We're hiring.
We're hiring. Everybody is, baby. And these companies get it. We've chosen them because they're the very best of the best. Lori, head of sales, hireable.
Yeah, hireable. Come at me, y'all. I'm right here. I'm right for the picking.
She is out actively searching, which I just think is fantastic. Really
And
cool.
listen
All right.
to this so you know how to answer my PD questions, my professional development questions when we interview.
Which is awesome. Make sure that you hook up with her. She's got tons and tons of great advice. I'm going to go into the first question on here. Anonymous attendee asks, what are some recommendations for learning and development tools for sales orgs that focus on career development? So anybody who wants it can take it. But first thing I'm going to do, anonymous attendee, is applaud you for asking the question and then make fun of you for looking for a tool, because that is what we do as sales leaders. We want to throw a tool at it all the damn time. It just cracks me up. But it is a totally fair question. Who's used a tool or a process or whatever, any resource? I'll open it up even further if they'd like to recommend.
I can tell you what Know-Before has done. So again, never split the difference. There is a series of books we put together that are great for sales reps that go over different parts of the sales life cycle. And there's a lot of knowledge available on that. The other thing is, do you have coaching and drilling on specifically things to enhance, like closing drills? Some people are great at talking to people, but then when it comes to the actual closing, like that's the number one area I've seen a lot of people fall short, like asking for the money. And so if you can develop what is successful drills and have ongoing drilling as a group holistically and have individual coaching with your employees, they can continue to grow. And I cannot stress this enough, have manager training, leader training. You do not get trained to be a manager. Leaders tend to be naturally born, but you do not get trained to be a manager and how to deal with the other humans you are suddenly responsible for. It doesn't matter if you are the greatest salesperson in the entire world. It's whether or not you can actually manage other salespeople, because life happens to people, and that's the fun part of managing. So having training around that and having drilling and coaching and constantly looking at where is the person at, what do they believe they need help with, and what are you seeing from the products they're producing, whether it's sales or demos or whatever. Where are they falling short in what you see as an idealistic sales cycle, and help them to bridge that gap.
I love that. That goes to Jean's comment, who just chatted in. It's a two-way street. The employee and the employer, right? The rep and the manager. We both have to be looking at what kind of development we want and need. Who wants to +1 on Erica's answer? All right. I encourage you to go out and do some searches. There are a ton of training providers out there in the marketplace. I say that it is a very busy market. I love the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals, and they have conferences and resources, and there's low cost and no cost as well. The next question, we're not going to have a lot of time to do this. I'm so, so sorry. You're asking about resources to make sure that your comp package is market competitive. Your comp, your benefits, your everything is market competitive. Does anybody have a really, really quick answer to that?
I can give a quick one. So one suggestion I have is to actually ask your team's HR partner how your pay stacks against others in your role structure, your level, your market. Many companies actually publish this information for employees. All of the companies I've worked at has been, it's basically to provide kind of transparency on compensation, and each company calls the metric something a little bit different, usually a compa ratio or a midpoint. So in my experience, that's kind of the best way to understand where your compensation falls in comparison to others. And it shows you if your pay is below or at or above market rate. So you can do that if you're at your current company, but you can also do that for the future company. You can say, what is the range for this role? And then you'll kind of get a sense of what the minimum, the midpoint, and the maximum typically are. It's a good starting point.
And it's a perfect way to ask it. What is the range for this role? If anything, I want us to all get out of this conversation from powerful queens, well said, Jen Halpern, thank you very much, Girls Club mentor, is ask. That's the best thing that you can do. Ask for it and get loud, because it's important. And if you're an employer trying to find the budget and the time for this, you need to do the same, because it will make the difference on bringing great talent into your organization. Thank you so much. Ladies, you are powerful queens. I appreciate you and your time and your efforts in giving back to our community. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great day.